Hey, everybody. You know, recently, somebody asked, I had a phone call and they called me actually from, it was somebody that was working defense side on appraisals. And they asked me, they say, I hear that you're fairly unbiased as an umpire. I said, I think I am, that's what I do. And he said, well, how do you hold to that? And it was a strange question, but the answer to it I thought I would share because I thought it made some sense that may not be obvious to some people. But here's the thing. For all these people that assign me as umpire, they know one thing. I'm going to take it personal. I'm going to actually look at all the details. As the umpire, I do not have the right to be shown damage that's legitimate damage and then just wave it off like some Jedi mind trick. If I do that, I'm not being unbiased. I'm literally doing something for some other reason outside the panel. Maybe that's because I want more work from carrier or more referral from an attorney or whatever the case may be. But those kind of loyalties, I basically absolve myself of those loyalties for this one reason. Because it's a lot like lying. When you lie, you got to keep track of all of it. When you go with the facts, it makes life much more peaceful. And I'm quite literally all about the peace. I had a claim not too long ago where I was the umpire. And to be honest with you, I had one person there that umpires on some stuff for my appraisal staff often. And the other appraiser who I met some years back as an opposing appraiser, and I've done some umpire work. But I've done umpire work for the both of them on multiple occasions. But on this particular one, I show up to this and, I've got one estimate for like $1,800 and another estimate for $171,000. And basically, all that's been paid for is a little bit of interior damage by the carrier, and the carrier's appraiser was more or less agreeing with that. Now, I already told you I respect the carrier's appraiser a great deal. I would trust him emphatically to be honorable in all things he does with these claims, period. So when he says that, I know he believes it, that's all that was necessary. And he said, the insured just got the claim, and less than 30 days later, they had this claim, so it was kind of suspect. Well, that's not really fair, is it? Because, I one time had a claim on the last day of my policy, but I didn't plan that. It just happened to happen at that point. That didn't make what I did, that didn't make my claim suspect. The other thing he said was, I've pulled core logic, I've looked at all this, and there's no wind here that day. There was nothing to damage this tile roof. Wow, that's quite a mouthful. I say to the other guy, can you tell me what's wrong with what his position? Because you're just so far away, you don't agree on anything except, a few this is and that's inside. The other appraiser, the appraiser for the insured, said, look, he said, I can show you things that moved around on the roof. I can show broken tile on the roof. The other guy says, hey, that's just probably wear and tear. And he said, but this guy didn't have a leaky roof. He didn't have a bunch of stains and a bunch of active leaks in his house until after an event happened. And the other appraiser says, but there was no event. So you understand my dilemma. Because if one of them is right, the $1,800 award is probably appropriate. Now, if I was going to split the baby, right? I'd say, let's just do some roof repairs. Let's do a hydro sheen or whatever it is. Let's do, I'll throw you a few, I'll throw you $10K to replace the part of the roof. We'll beef up the inside and give another 10 or 15 inside, and everybody can go to the house and everybody be pleased. But that's splitting the baby. They ain't got a damn thing to do about being an unbiased umpire or a reasonable appraiser for that matter. You shouldn't be in a panel when you do that. If you have somebody doing that with you, you need to call them out on it. It's bad behavior. So what I did was I said, guys, I'm going to look into this hard and I'm going to figure out what's going on here. If I find that there's no weather here, then I'm going to lean hard into the lower estimate. If I find that there was weather here, I'm going to lean hard into the other estimate because it either is or it isn't. So I sat down at my desk 20 hours later and I said, hey, look, I got to figure this out. So the first thing I do is I pull CoreLogic, I pull weather data, weather data from a couple of other sources, and then I pull a whole bunch of news sources that show me that, hey, within about 22 miles, there were, buildings that had the roofs pulled off of them. Within 7 miles, there was big oak trees that had come down. There was some things that went on, even a death in the area, having to relate to these storms. But it didn't say 100% that these storms affected this particular neighborhood in any substantial way, other than being very active storms. So, let's be honest. 30 miles an hour is not going to bother a clay tile roof. Just not. So I continue to look for it, and I just can't get a yes or a no, and I literally go down this rabbit hole where it's just not working out to get. Really, I can't figure it out. So what I do is I look to a better geek than me. I reached out to a colleague who is a meteorologist and that I meet a lot on expert work. And I said, hey, could you help me out? We had talked at a party some time back, and we had talked about this kind of consult. And I said, I'll pay you for it. But I don't need a full report. I need to understand what went on here and what didn't go on here. So he calls me the next day and he explains to me. He says, look, this would be very difficult for you to see. He said, because first of all, he says, what I'm going to tell you about probably only affected in this vortex kind of way maybe about 3 or 4 structures. But nonetheless, it was here, and there's lesser effects out from it, but you'd have to understand, and I'm not going to explain everything to you, but just understand this. When wind comes down, it comes straight down and it kind of deflects off the earth, and that's how it moves. He said, basically, we could see this wind coming, and we could see a situation where we couldn't, he said, and I don't understand this. He said, we couldn't call it exactly a straight line wind, but that's the closest definition he could give. He says, but basically this structure got hit with 72 mile an hour wind from its east side. I'm like, for how long? He says, about 20 minutes. I'm like, well, 70 might do a little something, but I don't know if it would. He said, but I'm not done yet. He said you had 84 mile an hour winds for about 19 minutes coming from the north. And they were coming at the same time. He says, so you've got centrifugal force coming from one direction and centrifugal force coming from another. He said, and a lot of times we'll see where structures that get affected by this look like a shotgun was taken to them. Because the duplicative effect of having 2 winds meeting like that makes the foot-pounds of what's actually going on go up substantially. He said he could write a big report and explain the whole thing to me further. But I said, just answer me the question. Is somebody lying here, or did something really happen? And he said the preponderance of evidence says that this particular structure, and probably the structure directly behind it, received this kind of vortex of wind that really actually would do more damage. And I said, thank you. And that conversation drastically affected what I did. We walked out of that appraisal with 3 signatures and with a good explanation of what happened. And that is why being unbiased is absolutely positively key, because literally I have no dog in the hunt at all. None. If you never give me business again, it's okay. Because if you don't like the truth, I don't want to work with you anyway. Guys, I appreciate you listening. I love talking to so many of you that call me and talk about this stuff. And I love putting stuff out here that's real, because so much of what we have out on these platforms just isn't real. But one thing's for sure, you are the Claims Tribe. And you guys make me proud every day with the things that you do. Because when nobody's looking, you are swinging for the rafters to do the right thing in so many ways. Peace, y'all.